Learning to do depth interviews or groups without understanding about qualitative research is like learning to drive a car without knowing the power of your vehicle, the rules of the road, or where it's safe to go. Qualitative research helps you to deeply understand what things mean to people. It has a variety of methods which you can think of as vehicles, and you can choose the most appropriate from the task. You can see from the pictures that these include conversation, observation, and collaboration, and you can work face-to-face or online. In fact, there are two main types of vehicles: depth interviews and groups. Depths are slower and more intimate, more detailed. Groups are by their nature social and need more people management. You need to be sure you choose the right one. Depth interviews give you more detail and individual insight, and so they're best for stuff that people interact with individually. Customer journeys, websites, brochures, you name it. And this way you can get communication, comprehension, and really pin down those complex decision-making processes, as well as avoiding peer group pressure. Drawbacks are that respondents have nowhere to hide, and they're quite time and labour intensive, so they do cost more per respondent. Groups, on the other hand, give you a range of perspectives and points of view. They're flexible, dynamic, stimulating, but they also feel safe for the respondents. And because there's lots of potential for snowballing and spontaneity, they can be quite creative. As well as that, they allow you, the moderator, to observe influence as it happens and group decision dynamics, and they're quite cost effective. But as you imagine, they do require good moderating skills. And some people do feel you can get a contamination of response as people bring in other ideas that you perhaps did not necessarily want to talk about at the time. Groups can be misused. Trying to avoid participants influencing each other can result in a rigid style of working. And also, trying to get lots of individual detail in a group results in boredom and frustration from the other members who have to listen to all these long-winded explanations. Whatever method you choose, you need some driving skills. An open mindset, really exploring the hypotheses that you have about what might be going on, challenging assumptions, and using open questions and techniques to allow findings to emerge, not just looking for what you think is there. Doing deep dives. We all wear masks to face the world because we want to look competent and confident. But in qualitative research, we establish relationships that allow people to remove their mask and to show their real needs and motivations. We need to avoid bias. Stereotypes, biases, and expectations can all get in the way of an honest and useful reaction. And we're talking both now about the interviewer and the participant. Empathy. Qualitative research is based on a theory called Constructivism, which is that meaning is generated by people and groups as they interpret their own experience. So that means the same thing has different meanings according to different contexts. It can be interpreted in different ways. So as researchers, we have to use empathy to enter the world of the participant and to understand its meanings. And of course, storytelling, because we hear people's stories and we use storytelling to convey research findings to all the stakeholders for maximum impact. Now, sooner or later, you're going to have to defend the small sample sizes of qualitative research. In fact, it's a trade-off. If you want understanding, then small numbers of people can give you a clear picture. Quantitative research, on the other hand, does allow you to measure, segment, test, and predict because it's got much larger sample sizes. But your understanding of the individuals within it is much vaguer and unfocused. In reality, the two are like yin and yang. They complement each other and they should be used together. But if you do ever have to explain about small sample sizes, here is a metaphor that can help. First of all, imagine you're about to see a play. Now, it's quantitative research that's actually told us where the play is set, what era it takes place in, who the characters are, and the general trajectory of the plot. The role of qualitative is to understand the factors that drive the actions we see. It's like studying a play. We ask what motivates the characters, how they relate to each other, and what it tells us about people and life. And you don't have to watch a play 500 times in order to study it, but what you do have to do is analyse it. Let's take an example. The original Hamlet. Here are what we would call the verbatims, the original words. I have words to speak in thine ear that will make thee dumb. In other words, I'm going to tell you something that will absolutely gobsmack you. We don't look just at the words on their own, but in the context of the theme. And there are many themes. There are themes about ears and poison. And the significance of those themes is about how words can manipulate and corrupt. And again, we have to interpret up another level. And the meaning of that is about how the dishonesty of leaders can destroy their organizations. And as much as that applies to the original Hamlet, it can also apply to a modern 21st century Hamlet, where again there is a corporation and a dishonest leader. Going back to our original metaphor, to drive your research, what you need is the right vehicle, an unbiased and open mind, a range of people skills, willingness to go into depth, etc., and a map of the territory. So what is the territory? Well, the territory is human beings, all aspects, the rational, emotional, social, and cultural. No man is an island. Everybody is embedded within social groups, peer groups, organizations, societies, and cultures. All of that affects what we think and do. So one aspect we need to look at is the conscious and the rational. This is the stuff that people can bring to mind quite easily and are quite willing to talk about. Kahneman would call it System 2 thinking. It's beliefs, attitudes, decision-making processes, behaviours, customer journeys, and so on. So far, so good. But actually, we know that most decisions are driven, much more importantly, by the intuitive and the emotional, what Kahneman would call System 1, and what people are beginning to call the non-conscious. So this is stuff like perceptions, intuitions, choice, heuristics, moods, emotions, and so on. And qualitative research is fantastically well placed to give you insight and information about those. Then we think about the social relations. People are much more influenced by peer groups, power structures, and social values than they imagine. And then, of course, there is the cultural. The culture is to us like water is to the fish. It's something we swim in without really being aware of. But the assumptions, the values, the symbols, the trends, all of these, again, affect our behaviour, our values, our attitudes. And by the cultural, we can mean national or ethnic cultures, organisational cultures, subcultures, you name it. So you have the territory and you need a map to help you go through the territory. This is going to be your topic guide or your script. It is not a shopping list of questions. It's a way of making sure that you're going to address all of the important issues and to help guide you through in a logical order so that the interview is interesting and relevant and helps you come to the insights that you need. Qualitative research can get you to many different destinations, from purchase decisions, usability, audiences, product pack and brand development. There really is very little that qualitative research cannot give you insights on. To summarise, the benefits: the methods are flexible and adaptable. They give you a deep understanding of a huge range of behaviour, attitudes, emotions, decisions, influences, and so on, as well as the hidden, implicit, non-conscious. And you get the depth, the detail, creativity, and rich information to help you make those important decisions. The drawbacks are that there is potential for bias, and qualitative research is very much dependent on the skill of the researcher. There are also limitations to what people know about themselves or what they can tell you. There are lots of memory and cognitive biases we have to be aware of and take into account. Talk-based methods often ignore the real-world context, which is why increasingly researchers are using more observation and ethnography. And of course, it's not statistically significant. That is not its job. That's what quantitative research is for. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been useful and you enjoy the training.